Beardy and the Beast, the second wall.
Ba-da-ba, ba-da-ba. This is placeholder intro song.
Welcome to the Second Wall, a binge-free zone where we will look at a series and discuss it in small chunks, similar to water cooler conversations of old. We can be found on most podcast and social media platforms, a full list of which can be found at beardyandthebeast.com. Today we'll be discussing the Netflix series Squid Game. With me, of course, is Drew. Please feel free to join the conversation in the comments below.
You saw that, didn't you? You saw that you lost. You know who also lost?
240?
Oh, 240 Bay. I was gonna say us.
Yeah.
Um, I would like to clarify something.
Okay.
There's a cultural misunderstanding that we had, specifically with the introduction of Squid Game.
Okay.
Um, I think we both assumed that Squid Game was something that the kids made up themselves,
Yes.
not a game that was played like back in the early or late 70s, early 80s.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I definitely played with a few other predictions.
but doesn't really improve the ending.
No.
I'd definitely say I'm personally dissatisfied. What say you?
I'm mixed. I which is really kind of the way we predicted we would go. Definitely dissatisfied that we didn't actually get what 218 did wrong. And I think that would have been again, I think that's something that's needed. I think it was there. He's like the only character we don't really have an actual backstory around.
All we know is he blew a bunch of his clients' money and also leveraged his mom's house and business
Yeah.
and lost that.
Yeah.
Um, it's not an ending for that character.
No.
That's
Um yeah,
uh,
I
yeah, the like a martyr role, not quite, but that's
so, so to
that's
be fair, we did say that he was like that was one of the chances, like this redemption thing. And I think that's what I feel like that's what they were trying to go for. But I mean, again, you don't have that any type of redemption there when we don't actually know how he wronged him. Like it felt. I thought he was going to go grab the knife and go at 456 again while he was,
well, I thought so too. I really thought so too. Um,
especially when like when he meets up with one again. They're talking about do you trust people still? It's like it would have fit better if you got screwed over by 218, or at least 218 tried to go after him and he had to end the game that way. Like, I think I would have been happier with that.
I th-
But,
yeah, the game was fine.
yep,
Nothing wrong with the game this time.
yep. I actually really enjoyed the fight.
Uh, the fight
The fight
was.
scene.
I'll tell you what I actually really enjoyed. I'll tell you what I like about it.
Uh,
It was obvious that these two people don't fight a lot,
yes,
and it was also raw and desperate.
yes,
Um, it it had a quality to it, and again, just a like superb acting. But you felt that both knew the consequences of losing that fight, and it wasn't monetary.
yeah,
It was based on like their life itself.
yeah. I, I, yeah, I really appreciated that. You're right. It was again clearly that they didn't know how to fight or haven't been in much fights. Uh, Yeah, it was visceral. They didn't do a bunch of jump cuts from like a cinematography standpoint. Like you just got to see the fight, which I think is something we talked about in other other films. I can't think of them offhand.
And it obviously it was choreographed, but it didn't feel choreographed.
Yeah.
And that was the biggest thing to me. Like there was no ridiculous like dodging the uppercut or some nonsense like that.
Yeah.
That goes back to uh, a lack of like combat experience in both their parts and it not being a showpiece,
Hmm.
like the action itself. It was the emotions and the motivations behind it
Yeah.
that was being showcased there through the fight.
Yeah.
And it's one of the things that we probably haven't praised enough, and that's been the directing, the shots, like the cinematography.
Yeah.
Like we've mentioned a little bit, but like superb.
Yeah. I completely agree. It's in. I kind of enjoyed the VIP's almost lack of interest in how the game was going. It's like, oh, it's done. Like, all right. But again, that just goes back to then why did we have these characters here in the first place? To the extent that you showcased them.
Yeah, well, I mean that "oh, it's done" was probably used as an accent to what was said by our
Yeah.
Gumbu,
Yeah.
the architect, um, having said like they don't have any thrill in life.
Yeah.
Uh, Better ways they could have done that.
That's exactly it. But I mean, so we didn't completely lose.
Uh,
Um,
well, I still honestly, damn it, it's not that our predictions were wrong. It was that the film was wrong. I,
okay, let's just go through a little bit of what we definitely got right. Oh, one being the architect, we always knew there was something off. We were discussing, okay, well, why was he in the game? And
yeah,
basically, the reason he gave is basically the reason I gave. Um, uh, you were right when you made the change in prediction last episode, where we talked about, well, because 001's the architect, it's probably going to be 456.
yeah,
That 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 survives. Um, just before the reveal of his mom being dead, there, I actually wrote down, it's like, oh crap, the mom's dead and the daughter's already gone.
yeah. Well, I wrote down too much.
Hmm.
The it seemed it seemed needless. It didn't seem like it was required for the point.
Yeah,
It's
and
like
there's
it's like
better ways to
cinnamon,
do it.
right?
Yeah,
Like cinnamon is great when used in the right amounts, but as soon as you put even a dash too much, it ruins whatever you're having.
yeah.
And that's how I feel about the mom's death. I think it would have been better if the mom had like lost one of her feet,
Hmm.
was like irreversibly injured, but the death itself was too much.
You know, it's I I don't think I minded the mom's death as much. What I did actually mind was the sad music playing at
Mm,
and so what I would have preferred there is what they did in Buffy.
mm,
You remember when Buffy's mom died?
yeah.
Right, there's the entire episode where they're just dealing with the dead, and it's like one of the few episodes with like hardly any monsters and that. But the biggest thing about it was they never had music. That
Mm.
entire episode had no music.
What?
And for me, I like that. This felt the music here made me go, it's like, we get it. He's just lost his friend. He's lost 67, who he's did form a little bit of a relationship with. You know, oh, now he's lost his mom. He's probably not going to have his daughter. You can clearly see the shock in how he's dealing with everything, right? Like that bit of PTSD that comes around it, and it was that sprinkling of the sappy music, the sad music that to me pushed it over the top.
They Yeah, either no music or stay true to form.
Yeah,
Play the same song that was being played by the music box, maybe a different remix, maybe something
yeah,
a little bit more somber. Um, I mean, silence is the better option,
yeah,
but going just directly into somber music didn't it didn't suit the film as a whole, especially when like the music was a recurring piece.
yeah,
You figure that
yeah,
there would have been some conclusion to that.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, that part it straight up it pulled me out for a few moments because all I could think was how I've seen this done better.
Yeah, well, what kept me in that is again the acting. Um,
Yeah.
Again, superb.
Yes.
Uh, I think the lighting really helped it
Mm,
because it would have been hard to pull that off in a more well lit environment.
yeah.
But
Yeah.
what else? See, this is the problem. This is why I'm dissatisfied. There's so much unanswered, but it's not unanswered in the they're going for a second season situation. It's just they didn't wrap anything up.
Yeah.
It's pretty much just like this ruling class of elites treats people badly.
Yeah. I think as I'm thinking about it a little bit more, yeah, I am leaning a bit more towards that dissatisfied. I mean, it was fine, I guess. It's
I mentioned this before. Like when you go for a message instead of trying to actually tell a story, that's where things fall apart.
yeah.
And I think that's kind of where this happened. Uh,
Well,
I'll tell you
what?
one thing though.
Mm,
I think 456's reaction to winning and treating the money as like dirty
yeah.
and not wanting to use the money, especially like when he's lost everything, definitely speaks to his character.
Yes.
So even though 218's ending was not how 218 should have gone,
Mm,
it didn't make sense for his character.
yeah.
I'm sorry, there's no way that he would show any form of remorse, especially after stabbing his friend twice. Um, but 456 reaction in the writing on that to a T what the character would have done.
Yeah, it did not surprise me at all that he didn't touch the money. I wrote down it's like, yeah, this is how someone wins the money and still lives in squalor.
Yes,
Uh,
which
so that made
mm,
perfect sense to me. But as much as those things are done great, it to me almost pulls up the holes that we've already talked about
mm.
are are there in even a bigger light now.
Yeah, because they didn't do anything to fill them.
Yeah, yeah. Again, like so. Again, why is the brother being the front man? Like, there's still absolutely nothing around this. It again becomes a wasted point in my mind. Like, I actually had to go and look. It's like, okay, it was like just because I couldn't quite remember the faces. It's like, was the front man the one who played the game with them in the first place? At least that would have been a cool connection,
Yeah,
but he wasn't. But they didn't do anything with it. And clearly, he was still there with 001, but but why though? Is all I
But
could
why?
think.
Yeah.
um, and then there was again things that to me popped as red herring that did kind of click with some of our theories, like the idea of the legacy or the winners being the VIPs or something. Um, like as soon as the banker said to 456, like, "Oh yeah, this is how we treat our VIPs," I'm like, "Oh, this is a way to get them pulled back in," and get nothing with it. Like,
Yeah, it just
the
ended up boiling down to 001 and his buddies setting up a life or death thing um,
for
for entertainment purposes, which makes me really wonder, like, yeah, but why though? um, my thing is, this is not how you set up a series for a second season,
no,
and this is not how you end either a standalone, obviously, or how you end an individual season.
yeah,
Uh,
it's
there's just too much waste.
yeah,
Um,
and it's waste in a way that you can't really use it in a follow up season if they were to make a follow up season.
what are you talking about? It's gonna be Handsome Cop and K-pop 456 going into the game themselves.
Well, assuming Handsome Cop it didn't die. um, I, I'm gonna go back to kind of one of our original comparisons way back when,
Yeah.
like when we first started with episode one. We talked about Liar's Game, which has a very similar concept. It's still kind of an elite group, playing with people's lives and not necessarily to the death, but there was a point to their game, right? They expected people to screw each other over and not care about it. And you had the introduction of I can't remember the main character's name, but you had the introduction of her who just kept that little bit of hope and kept proving that there was something there that you could move forward. Everyone could win, or at least everyone could not lose. And I just wanted that. Like, I wanted some sort of pull like that, especially when he goes on talking about trusting people and stuff like that. When one goes about trusting people and stuff like that, like that's where Liar Game did it so well.
Well, that's the problem with that I had with that whole like questioning by 001. Why was that a topic?
Yeah,
There was no reason for that to be even inquired to 456. Like the game itself wasn't about establishing or losing trust. Uh, why did it come down to like trusting in people's innate goodness?
yeah,
That wasn't even a theme of the show.
yeah.
Um, the
They
closest
touched on it once.
well, the closest you could get with that is like 456 constantly struggling with his morality.
Yeah,
And even then, that's more of a character point. It wasn't an overarching theme.
yeah. There was a single line back in I want to say episode 3 when he was talking to 067 about it's like trust because you have to. Like that was the extent of trust being touched upon
Yeah.
in this, right? Like I remember it because again, I'm like, okay, I could see where this is going. And when we had our idea of a coterie managing to win it, like that made sense, but they basically threw that out. right afterwards.
A conversation of that nature, especially when it comes to establishing establishing trust and like the good nature of men, that conversation would make more sense in my head if it was 218 standing there.
Yes, because then there's at least a point to be shown.
Yeah. I I mean the only thing that it didn't even really suit the film or the show. Um is it seeing that innate goodness kind of brought 456 back to civilization, I guess you could say.
Yeah,
But again, it didn't suit.
yeah.
It honestly, I'm going to include the cop episode in what I'm about to say.
Okay.
Even though we both don't really like it and don't think it should be there. Even
Yeah.
though lots of handsome cop time, which is nice. Um
So dreamy.
so dreamy. I feel like up to that episode there was a point and then someone just turned and went, let's change it because the
Reasons.
wealthy elite are bad and we'll make it
Yeah.
about that.
Yeah.
And I honestly, why is this becoming a thing? Like this is the second thing that I've watched here that was relative to like a production standpoint with Netflix that I've had this feeling.
Yeah.
Uh like Carol and Tuesday, it was like, oh, we have this great series and it's very like slice of life and there's, conflict and existence and emotion. And then, oh, but politics.
Yeah.
Excuse me, what? That's not what this show's about.
Yeah.
Um, and then this one is um, like visceral and challenging and life or death. Oh, but the elite.
Yeah. You could have had the same, like, it didn't add anything to it. Like, it was a,
Well, much like Carol and Tuesday, it took away from the show.
yeah, completely took away from it. It's just, because again, I like the idea of what would you do to survive? Like, you're stuck here, you have no choice, even though they made it clear that you had the choice.
Yeah,
He reiterated, 001 reiterated it again on his deathbed. You chose to come back,
that's a
right?
little slap in the face too.
Oh,
I did like that a little bit
yeah,
because that's exactly what someone in his position would have said. It's like,
yeah.
but you did it to yourself.
But again, like, something like that would have had more weight if, because you got to remember, up until they actively said, "Oh yeah, we're not going to bring back the people who didn't show up. We'll just keep an eye on them," which cop out. I hated it.
Yeah, because they didn't do anything with that.
Yeah, they didn't do anything with that again.
Why even
And
include that?
yeah, it's so, because to me it very much felt like they shouldn't have had a choice once they made the original choice to be there without knowing, what the stakes were. As soon as they were brought back, that should have been it. And the people who chose to not participate in the game should have had something happen. Like, the only choice that, if I was in that same situation, I'm going to assume it's like, okay, I see what these guys do. I don't have a choice if they call me back.
Mm,
That's my thought. So I don't. That's what made that feel like a slap in the face. Because if I was in 4, 5, 6 position, I wouldn't have felt like I had the choice to not return.
mm.
The only reason we know that it was a choice is because off screen, essentially, for they said, "Oh yeah, no, we'll just keep an eye on the people that didn't show up." Right? They could have just ignored that. They didn't need to say anything about the people that didn't return.
Yeah, like why even?
Just, just leave it a question in our heads. That's a good question to leave.
Yeah, there's a lot of structural problems with this, like
Yeah,
a lack of internal consistency in the series, and we've talked about it many times when it comes to uh the game's not following their own rule set.
Yeah.
The deaths outside of the games itself, I don't think should have been there. I
No.
get why they're there in the show and what they were doing with it, but structurally didn't feel right. Uh, we both agree that the hopscotch glass game was BS.
Yep.
Uh, yeah, the problems with this series and the reason why I'm dissatisfied with the ending are completely structural.
Mhm.
Uh, the fact that they kept poking plot holes into the series itself and they did nothing to rectify them. It's not even. I'd be okay if it was them creating questions
Yes.
that we would want answered. But the fact that it's too coincidental. And I think if they were to take Handsome Cop storyline out of it, like completely,
Yep.
uh, or if Handsome Cop storyline wasn't even on the island,
Hmm.
like if they established backstory through Handsome Cop investigating the disappearances of these random people who had a card,
That would have made sense.
that would have been the better way to do it.
Yeah, you could have had very similar things. Him doing that, we get the reveal of it being his brother that is the front man.
Yeah.
Still, that would have actually had some impact then. All right, especially if he's the one who finds that out through that scenario. Like, there would have been impact there. We talked about this before. Saw does that.
Yep.
It's
It worked against itself too many times.
yeah.
It's and I don't even think anymore. Like I originally was thinking that there was a well thought out first half of the series and then an ending point, and that it was just muddling through it to get to the end. Now I really do think it's like the first half, and then it's like, oh, but the elite dough, they bad.
All right.
Let's make it
So
about that and not about.
so I want to give this a little. I'm giving the slight benefit of the doubt here.
Ah,
So,
sorry,
um,
I
well,
mean I'm not laughing at you. I'm just like,
oh, so hear me out. So let cop episode, glass episode. Um, we don't like those at all. We cut them out completely, because that's where the show started falling for us. Was that the handsome cop episode?
yes,
Okay. The conversations about things like the trust and the trust being questioned with 218 was established before this episode. That ending, where he's talking about trust, could connect if we didn't have those middle episodes. So I think that they did have the actual structure they wanted, and maybe there was executive meddling that said we want to have this message, and it threw off those episodes, which is why those episodes in particular leave such a bad taste in our mouth.
so wait, are you saying cohesive storyline, but someone came along and went, but handsome cop though?
I'm not saying but handsome copto. I'm saying but to we need to show how bad these elites are and such. So I think they pivoted at that episode.
Hmm.
So now handsome cop's purpose is not handsome copto, it's handsome cop in this regard, so we can show how bad elites are by having them treat them so badly for a wasted episode. So because they were talking about trust, there was, like, I mean, while there wasn't necessarily trust within most of the games, the idea of forming the coteries were there, where there's an innate trust there, which unfortunately they destroyed right away. But all of that destruction happens kind of after they had it built up, because we were talking about that at the beginning.
Hmm.
So when I look at those beginning episodes, or the way we were originally saying it, and we were right because we saw the groups form in the way we thought they were going to form. We saw the betrayal. We saw him gain 67's trust. We saw his trust in 218 shatter. So the question of, do you trust people, makes sense. If we take out these episodes where it goes, why are you messing with this so much?
Okay. I think it's a valid theory. I see
Yeah.
exactly what you're saying. Uh, I don't disagree.
Mm.
One thing that I'm concerned about the trust aspect. There was something about the writing that made us both question 456's allegiance to 218 from the start.
Yeah.
And that's where we came up with stolen test theory.
Yeah.
Because part of stolen test theory was uh I'll call it the Han Solo dilemma.
Mhm.
So stolen test theory for anyone tuning in now is we thought that 218 stole 456's test, used it to get into SNU, and then become a big fancy boy.
Yeah.
Um, where Han Solo comes into it is when 218 admits this and 456 replies with "I know."
Yeah.
So that was one of the theories that we had. And part of that is because there seemed the way that 456 talked to and about 218, there seemed to be a hesitant trust there.
Yes.
And just 456's acting was too good. I don't think it was an acting mistake.
Mhm.
So it has to be something in the writing.
Yeah. And I mean, to go with that, we saw the same type of hesitancy with 218 to 456.
Hmm.
Like there was that hesitancy there. There was that almost idea of, it's like, I don't know. I got tinges of, can I screw him? Should I be screwing him over again? Again, back to the umbrella one,
Yeah,
right?
so if we go with your thought that we discussed in Sycamore Squid Game 8, um, if we go with the concept of 218 always having like almost even a sociopathic bent,
Hmm.
you would consider it a uh, him questioning whether or not he should ally with 456 because will it benefit him in the long run?
Yeah.
If we go from it from my point of view, which is an acceleration of or a growth of a seed that's in him,
Yeah.
um, I think that same explanation might work because you would go, does it benefit me to ally with this person, or will this person be a weakness, especially after they see this first round of deaths?
Yeah.
Because 218 seemed, I wouldn't say smart enough, but at least sly enough that that would be a consideration.
Hmm.
Um, will this person hold me back because in the end there will be death?
Yeah.
So my only lasting questions at this point really are related to 218's motivations.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, everything else was poorly answered.
I, it's not even about being poorly answered. These were poorly framed questions to even open,
Yeah,
even to bring in. It's not because I think technically the questions were answered fine. I guess.
yeah, it was passive. I don't know.
I'm more concerned about why did you raise these questions in the first place?
Yeah,
Right.
and with like part of the dissatisfaction that I have with the film is partially because some of our random predictions would have been better endings to the story.
Yeah.
Um, Stolen test theory would definitely be one of them. Um,
Better reason for the legacy with the brother. Like have him forced into doing it somehow, or
yeah, like
being tied to the
coercion.
architect.
Well, especially
Yeah.
like if they wanted to bring the manipulative elite into it, coercive running of the game would be the perfect door for that.
Yeah.
It's the problem with the ending is it's a half realized concept.
Half realized concept, or the concept was realized and again they had to change it because yeah, a lot of the theories that we had actually would have made the ending make sense. I
Hmm.
would have been a lot more satisfied with this if again we did find out, yeah, no, he 218 did screw him over. This is his redemption. It's like, no, we've gone too far. One of us is going to walk away with this. It's clearly not me. I would have been happy with
Yeah.
that sacrifice um, as a reason for him not just quitting the game when he had the chance to live.
Well, especially like again,
you
yeah, I agree.
know, going into to 218's mom, right? That woman's a saint.
Yeah.
Like, that's all I can say there. Uh,
Well, I mean,
I mean, it would have given that more meaning too. Like when she's still helping out 456. Uh, right? And even if there's some throwaway line, like she could have been a vehicle enough to play into this a little bit. Just some throwaway line. It's like, oh, it's like something about them being top of the class together. Anywhere in the story could have been enough of a connection to give this.
I just
Right.
well that seemed offbeat to me. Like I'm
Mhm.
glad that they concluded those two storylines of 456 taking care of both of the families.
Yes.
6, 7, and 218s, but it should have been an emotional moment. And I was just sitting here kind of going, lol, what is this
You want
lol?
so I agree, and I have a couple of reasons for this from the narrative as we were given it. One, the K-pop hair didn't help. I saw that and
Yeah.
I'm just like, oh, this is the most cartoonish thing I have seen. This does not fit in any way. I get that you're trying to reinvent yourself or whatever, but and it's
Well, a suit and a haircut
you
would have done
waited,
fine.
yeah, and you waited over a year.
Well, I
Like
mean, the
it
year
was
makes sense
literally her
though.
dying wish. Yeah,
Um, because he was like many people who come back from an extremely traumatic experience. Like this is the reason why there's a lot of homeless veterans.
that's fair. I get that. Like it's not.
It's just
I understand the year. It's just because you all of a sudden throw in this time skip and stuff like that. It took away from some of that emotional resonance. And again, I just feel like those 3 episodes that we have such an issue with could have been used to give us more emotional resonance here somehow. Right? If it's something like, you know, 456 always looking out for 218 and his family.
mhm.
right? Even though it has him, basically begging for scraps, right? Something like that would have given that emotional resonance. Like, oh, cool. She's a saint. Makes sense. He's clearly not father material, and they could have still played with that questionable interaction with his daughter. And it's like, okay, well, because it's it's just as valid to be able to go, it's like, no, I know I can't handle this, but I need to make sure this kid's taken care of. So I'm going to make sure he goes to a good home. I like that.
So you just you
But the
just
buildup wasn't there.
you just mentioned his daughter, and this is the biggest glaring issue I have.
Oh, yeah.
So I had eventually convinced you of
Yep.
him actually being a caring father. It's just he didn't have the means.
Yep.
And then as soon as he was emotionally available to and physically available to do something nice and actually show up for his daughter, he went, "Oh, action movie moment though. I'm not gonna do it, and I'm gonna go fight the elite."
Oh, yeah.
It took
I,
away from the entire motivation he had to be in the Squid Game in the first place.
yep. Oh, yeah. I definitely felt that. Like, oh, you're getting so close to, like, I'm like, yay, you proved Drew was super smart. No, you didn't.
What I would be like 15 degrees more satisfied if he got on the plane.
Yes.
Even if he said something like, "I'll be seeing you soon," and then got on the plane.
Yeah.
Like, the fact that he couldn't show up for his daughter means that everything that he went through was without a purpose.
Yep. Yeah. It's that's exactly it. It's become purposeless. Now your drive is to just stick it to the man. Again, I go back to Liar's Game, and I'm like, the whole reason why she kept going back into the game wasn't for herself. It was to try to save as many people from the game as she could. That was a motivation that made sense. And this felt just so selfish. Oh, you hurt me, so now I'm going to come back in and hurt you. Is what I got from it. I'm like, I'm not looking for Death Wish.
Yeah, and this really makes me wonder, like, they can't do a second season because it can't have anything related to the feel. It would have to be a crime action movie
Yeah.
or series. Like, it because of the way they ended it, there's no possible way that they can bring it back in without just blatantly ripping off Battle Royale.
Yeah. They they can't. There's nothing there. Like the architect is dead, right? The one who started these things. Like, okay, it's still continuing, but you got the leader. You're not handsome cop.
Oh,
If you're if
great.
you're handsome if you're handsome cop, again, handsome cop looking at this game from the outside, I could see him joining the game to do that. That would have made sense. Hey,
Well, and one of so talking about a handsome cop, it's another thread that wasn't even potentially answered. It wasn't like it went to his captain and his captain was bought off.
yeah,
Because it seemed like several of those items that were sent went through.
yeah,
He only had to resend a couple.
yeah,
So I really, really they didn't tie up the things that they should have, and they added a bunch of stuff that was unneeded.
yeah.
And I would have forgiven K-pop hair if he got on that damn plane.
Yes.
The suit was enough. You don't need bright red hair when you're in your 30s. I mean, if you want red hair and you're in your 30s, go for it. Um, but I don't mean to disparage people with bright red hair because it's appealing.
it's it just
It's
kind of came out of nowhere in that regards too. It's like, but but why this change? This doesn't. This seems so out of character.
well, I wouldn't have minded if it was the K-pop hair. So
Yeah.
the first hair, yeah, I think it was like a woman's bob.
Yeah.
Um, like it was perfectly coiffed in all the right places, and seemed like it would actually suit him in to some degree.
Yes.
But the fact that he went with the bright red, I know people. What's the way to say this? It's not something that I think is within his character that he would reinvent himself in that way.
Yeah.
I think a decent suit was sufficient, and maybe actually standing up for himself in
Hmm.
some regard. But it's like it would have made more sense to me if Handsome Cop came back with the red K-pop hair.
Yes. So I want to talk about something else that kind
Okay.
of makes sense, kind of feels out of character at the same time, but needed to happen for the story.
Okay. I
So,
probably hate it.
okay, so some of this is coming from the whole trust thing again. So let's
Okay.
go with he's lost all trust with people and such, right? Clearly doesn't care anymore, right? You see that in how disheveled he is. He didn't look that disheveled beforehand when he didn't care. He looks worse now that
Sure,
he's
sure.
got a lot of reason to not care.
I mean, yeah, story reasons, blah blah blah.
Yeah.
That makes
So
sense.
yeah. Does it feel odd to you that he bought the flower?
Uh, no,
Okay.
I didn't.
Because
It
because
didn't feel
it,
feel out of place for me at all. Um, because it's not like he had completely abandoned himself.
yeah.
There's still like an underlying morality, which I felt should have been the centerpiece of this entire series. Um, the fact that he could help and he was being begged to help was a direct connection for me. It just made
Okay.
sense.
Okay. I think it'd feel I might feel a little bit better, a little bit closer to that. And again, if you're right, if they made it about, if the idea of the trust and the morality did play a larger part in it, instead of that bit of a mess that we got, I would agree.
Yeah.
Um, and if we had, if he wasn't just giving money that he literally just borrowed from a banker who was calling him because he's got millions of dollars that he hasn't touched in a year.
I tell you though, I liked that scene.
I liked that scene. Yes.
I actually I had a moment. It's like in the last 15 minutes, I haven't actually experienced anything I liked.
Yeah.
And then that scene happened, and he's like, "Did I do something wrong?" And the guy's like, "No, but like your money could be making money." And then
Yeah.
I'm leaving now. Can I have $10? And
Yeah.
I'm like, it's it frame that scene did something that this series does well. At least when it came to 456, 218. Actually, you know what? Any of the numbered characters,
Yeah.
not including G29.
Yeah.
Uh, and I'm going to retcon 218's death
Okay.
for this statement.
Yeah.
This series does really good to create an instance or an interaction that's able to frame a character in the way
Mhm.
that they're supposed to be framed. uh, not so, not with a lack of waste that you might see in something like Carol Tuesday, which was what we praise Carol and Tuesday a lot for.
Yeah.
But there will be a significant scene that's involves the character but is not about the character, but it frames the character. Each numbered character seems to have been whole,
Right.
and their individual motivations considered. Whether or not they told the viewer any of that information is a different situation.
Yeah.
But that is something overall I like.
All right. Yeah. So unfortunately, that actually makes him giving her the money, him buying the flower, kind of still fall off for me.
Mm.
It stated very clearly he's just fallen into his old ways, hasn't touched the money, just being a drunkard and doing what he can to get money and begging. You remember, if he's fallen into those old ways, he went back and asked for his tip back because he had his money stolen.
Yeah, but again, if 218 was sitting there, him giving $10 to a desperate person's not out of character. It's legitimately something that he's done previously.
Okay, yeah, no, it's
I'm
man,
not
those middle few episodes messed me up so bad with these characters with some of this stuff.
I am I'm not convinced of it,
Yeah.
but I do have a twinge of, was 218 supposed to be the winner?
Mm,
Because the interaction with 001, the interaction with the flower lady,
yeah.
uh the whole like setting up the
Oh.
kid and his mom together would not have happened. But
Oh, no, no, I could make it happen. I could make it happen if 218 actually if they didn't kill 218, I can make it work. Sorry,
mm,
go ahead, finish your thought first.
no, I'm pretty much thought I'm done.
Okay.
I'm just like my thought
There
is, yeah, 218 was supposed to be the.
okay. There was a line in the conversation with 001 that stuck out to me. And during that conversation, 456 asked him, "Why did you let me live?"
Hmm.
Why is that a question?
Why is it a question?
But if you go with your theory there right now,
Okay.
oh, I like this. I like this. Okay, I'm good. So 218 wins.
Yeah,
They do the fake out death for the VIPs like they did with 001 in the Marble game.
sure.
We hear the gunshot, make your assumptions. Cut to a year later, disheveled 456 on a train. You know, see him going back and kind of, you know, still begging for the money, and you know, you have the same interaction with 218's mom. Oh, have you heard from him? Because I haven't heard from him forever. I'm
Yeah,
worried about your mom. Here's some mackerel. Right? Just randomly trying to give her a little bit of money and saying no, can't. Right? So from there, we cut to so we follow the same story. He buys the rose because whatever. He's, as you said, he is kind of that little bit of
yeah. The
that,
other
that bit of
streak.
caring.
Yeah,
That bit of caring is still there. So he gives that to her, gets the card, goes to the game again. Why?
yeah,
But that's beside the point. He goes to the game, gets his final game with 001. He wins the game because he technically won the game. Now he gets a reward. Now he's got the money that he's won without actually killing people, but because he did manage to keep on to a little bit of his faith in the guy being saved. Now he gets the money. Now he can go and help 6-7 like he promised on her deathbed. And now we
Mm.
can go see his daughter.
Oh, so that
So
bet was the
218,
final game.
yes. So 218 does win. 218 has the money. 456 is screwed because he lost the game.
But then, like,
001,
shouldn't he die?
but because 001 liked him,
Oh,
all
okay.
of a sudden he gets the question of why
Why
did you
did you
let
let
me
me
live?
live? Okay. I mean, it fits far better, and I would dislike it just as much. Just
I
like,
think I dislike it a bit
well,
less.
I would dislike it for different reasons.
That's fair.
Uh, it would just be a bad story, opposed to not fitting at all. So this is nothing fits
Yeah.
right now, and what you say, though it makes far more sense, still isn't a good story.
Yeah.
Uh, so that's, yeah, I think I would dislike it just as much, but it does make far more sense.
But if they managed to keep that theme of trust throughout it that we were showing in the first few episodes, it
Yeah, if
actually
they,
it would have worked well.
yeah,
So I'm doubling down on the executive meddling made them change that middle bit, and it broke what they actually had planned.
yeah, I think they should have went stolen test, um, and legacies run the game through some like legacies still get screwed because elites are bad,
Yep.
which would also help with the elites are bad message.
Yep.
Um, which all of a sudden brings some legitimacy to handsome cop storyline.
Yep.
Not much. Um, but then at
Well,
least,
then it becomes the vehicle to show
yeah.
the legacy. Yeah.
Uh, I just not an ending.
Mm.
Uh,
It ties up most of the threads we have. Like for that reason alone, I'd say it's more satisfying.
I'll
It
tell you,
just makes things fit together a bit better.
if they do come out with a second season, which there has been questions about and like uncertainty.
Yeah.
But if they were to come out with a second season, I wouldn't be surprised if like some of what we said follows into that.
Mm.
Because Handsome Cop's not dead.
Yeah.
This series is very Game of Thrones like in the fact that it doesn't shy away from on-screen deaths of character.
Well, it's the whole reason why we figured 001 wasn't dead.
Yeah, well, I mean, you brought up suspicion from him,
Yeah.
like from Handsome Cop episode.
Yeah.
So, that just
It was the nail in the bow wrapped casket.
yes, which I'm glad they kept that as a theme, having a well, it was always a box, a gift
Yeah.
box, but they brought that into the last episode with the card, which
Yeah.
I thought was nice.
Yeah.
Um, yeah,
Man, man, I know.
I'd probably
Ah. Sorry, I
it's
just
it's
the
it's hard for me to want to recommend this to someone knowing how half formed the story is,
yeah,
but the acting is just so good,
yeah, I
and this
agree.
like so much that is good about it, including like directing, sound design. They overuse some classical music tropes, sure, but it fit
And it was
and
consistent.
it was It was consistent, and if you think about it in not a binge way, it doesn't become oppressive.
Yeah.
Um, the lighting, the tones of the scenes, everything was within form.
Mhm.
Everything made sense. I assume it was very well storyboarded as well. Like there was a lot of consideration in each shot. It's just unfortunate. It's the story that's where it falls apart, which is hard to forgive. But I would straight up say someone should watch this for the acting.
Yeah, like I felt for the characters. I never once questioned. It never once entered my head that we're watching actors in these stressful situations.
Hmm.
Like we could have been seeing these characters in these situations. It felt that strong to me.
Yeah, the only thing that bugged me about the characters to start was 212 and 101 at the beginning.
See, yes and no. I just figured that like again some of that stuff was just the bravado and
Yeah,
such as with them, right? Like
yeah, I could see that.
it, they're
Like
the
I've
type of
met,
characters that would have that type of
yeah, I've met people like that, so it makes sense.
yeah.
Yeah,
So yeah. Oh no, I'm still stuck on that 218 wins and 456's final game is where he actually gets the money and that's why he's able to turn himself around.
yeah,
Uh,
but like it's
yeah.
a good thought. Like it makes a whole
Yeah.
as the
It makes
conclusion to the story as it is
yeah.
would be far better.
Yeah. It makes frontman making more sense being there as well. Because someone's got to give the payout for winning game. Oh, I would also like to point out when he won the game, that the final game about the guy being saved before midnight, it was really suspiciously timed that oh one died at the stroke of midnight.
Yeah, I forgave that.
I groaned a little bit. So I'm like, it, it felt a little forced to me, but
Oh, well, I mean, like the second half of this season was just situations of convenience.
yeah,
Things
I guess
happened because it was convenient to happen at the time they happened.
yeah, it wasn't as forced as the marbles with 101.
I
Or
liked it.
just
I liked Marbles. I'm sorry. I liked 101 and Marbles.
it was
It was
than anything else I would have liked it.
it was it was goofy in a way that I usually dislike, but I kind of liked for some reason. I don't know. I got
um,
probably because it was far less serious than what was going on with 001 and 456 and 218, 199 and 240 and 67. Like,
or it was that tension break that needed to be there. Okay, I can see that. I'll,
yeah.
I'll give you that. So,
Yeah, and how
mm,
this show doesn't conclude like three-quarters of the lines that it did, but it concluded the line of the man who played against his wife.
so glad they concluded with that.
Yeah, I mean if they kept that kind of consistency with everything,
Yeah.
um yeah, it
So,
would have just been better.
yeah. So, do you think this is clearly hard to speculate, but do you think you would have viewed this differently if we decided to binge it instead of second wallet? Do you think some of this stuff would have slipped by, or do you think it would have been worse?
Well, I probably would have forgave it more because I'd been more likely to like binge it while maybe slightly intoxicated or something. So I would have been less analytical. But on the other hand, I could easily see this having been a story that when I got three-quarters of the way through, I just stop.
Mm.
I do it a lot with books. When I reach the climax of a book, I'll just stop reading it. Do it with TV shows all the time. Don't know what it is about me, but that's something I do, and I don't think I would have finished the series.
Fair enough.
Uh,
Um,
Not that I forced myself to, but there was a lack of interest and just a whole lot of "oh come on"
yeah.
at the end.
So I'm I'm glad we second walled this. It let the things that worked sink in. But it also has the disadvantage of making the things that didn't work
Mm.
stand out.
Especially when you have someone who's thinks differently than you, but is also pointing out the holes that they see,
Yeah.
and you're like, "Oh, you're right."
Yeah. And so I'm gonna go out on a limb here. I think I might have been a little less. I think I might have some of the stuff probably would have slid past or would have been more forgivable if I had binged it.
Mm,
And the reason for this is so we'll just cut kind of cut in a few places. So um the way the tug of war game ended, we don't give ourselves time to think on just the end of the episode, the cliffhanger part of the episode,
yeah,
having the emotional reaction almost immediately by binging it. We're not going to go, but why did you do the game this way? Because we just immediately go into that emotional beat.
yeah,
Even the same thing with episode 8 into episode 9. We're probably going to go, oh, good, this is how the fight between 218 and 456 ends up going,
and
right? Even
cop
though it's that, but we have the emotional reaction from,
and handsome cop episode would have been a welcome break
yeah,
because you would have had one set tone for a long time. It might have felt droning, so handsome cop episode would all of a sudden, uh,
your breather episode.
yeah, breather, and then back into the original tone.
Yeah.
Oh, well, I mean, wonder about this sometimes. These series is, especially when they release like a bunch of episodes at one time, if they've actually have been written to be bitten.
Yeah. Yeah, it's one of those things. It's like it's not that I mind the episodes all being released at the same time, and I get the fact that one of the nice things with the streaming services is an episode is as long as it needs to be,
Hmm.
right? So having a half an hour episode in there, like episode 8 was, it works when you are doing this because you're not worried about filling a time slot.
Yeah, it's kind of like Beauty and the Beast podcast. They just kind of go on and on until they feel they're done with the conversation instead of
Yeah, well, that's exactly it, right? You take the time you need. If you need this room, take it. But I, I I think this instant I kind of talked to one of my friends just very loosely about our discussions in it, right? And there's a response of it's like, well, why are you coming from this if you haven't finished the series yet? It's an issue with you watching the show this way, right?
yeah,
By us breaking it apart and purposely not binging it. And that's why I asked this question because it immediately came to my mind. It's like, oh, you binged watch a show. You didn't give yourself time to take what was happening.
yeah,
And I think there's it's honestly a big reason for us doing the second wall the way we do is take time to appreciate it. Sure, yeah, we didn't watch the entire series the day it came out. We took, 4 or 5 weeks to do it. but it means we get to appreciate the good and the bad and have discussions. We wouldn't be able to do this if we just binged it. And I
Yeah,
think a lot of that's getting missed.
and honestly, that would have probably made a lot of the filler that they crammed into the Angela show more palatable.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And I mean, I can say straight up, I watched Angela. I binged it when it came out.
Yeah,
And like, okay, you know, this makes sense. And then I watched it again, but watched it over a few days and then watched it again, you know, over a few weeks. And like, I'm like, okay, yeah, it's a bit cringy, but the Angela stuff was so good. So I just hung on to that emotion going in right into the next episode. I could ignore the politics again.
it's yeah. I wonder. I wonder if your friend is right. Then might be an issue with. I mean, the format. I mean, formatting's not going to change, but I'm wondering if something is lost because I'm not going to say that binging is mindless per se, but you don't give yourself time to digest the content.
Mhm.
Uh, like the purpose of the second wall is the water cooler talk,
Yeah.
the theories and the discussions, and oh, this was good and this is bad, and I hate this character. Oh, I like this character now. And that's lost in the age of streaming, and that's the reason why we started the second wall.
Yeah.
So I'm unfortunately it seems to bring to light some of the troubles of shows like Squid Game
Mhm.
because I think if I watch this all in say one or two goes, I probably would have felt less dissatisfied.
Yeah. Yeah. Because you'd just be playing off the emotions, right? Just the emotion. Because I was thinking it's like this ending should have felt cathartic in
Hmm.
some ways, but it didn't. Why did it fall flat like we thought it would? And all I could think is like, I don't think this would have fallen this flat if I'd seen that response. If it was if I watched it back to back with again 67 dying,
Hmm.
I would have felt some sort of catharsis in 218's death because like yeah, that's what you get. I I think that's a big thing. I think it'll be interesting because I know we have a few shows on our list. We haven't decided what our next second wall is going to be yet, but I do know we have some older short series that
Yeah.
were released on TV where you had that break, and I know there's going to be issues with them. There's issues with everything, but I'm wondering if we'll see these similar types of issues that we've seen with the two Netflix series that we've done so far,
This is
because those
actually
shows weren't designed to be binged.
this makes me wonder about and this is where I say something and lose half our fans. Sorry, but Firefly was not actually that good. Had it gone on to multiple seasons, it would have been great.
Yes.
But the season one Firefly, as it stands, was mediocre at best, except when binged.
All right. Yeah.
I'm wondering if a lot of the fan base for that series would have been established simply from the because they were really one of the pioneers of being binged because of the way that it was misreleased to start. And
Yeah.
then when it came out, it got that cult following because people would like get the DVD and then just watch the whole thing.
I could see that.
I mean, I've
I
only watched them in order in a
mhm,
binge method, and I
yeah.
really enjoyed it that way, even though critically this series is mediocre.
It's Firefly is one of those shows like I see where you're coming from with that,
Yeah.
but I remember, I remember when shows weren't meant to be binged. I mean, Star Trek: The Next Generation, uh, their first seasons were terrible. Buffy's first season was terrible. First seasons suck.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm
and it,
wondering.
and it
Like,
and it's one of the stronger first seasons. Firefly was a very strong first season. It felt like something that I would have seen more in a second season, which I think is where some of it comes from, but still hasn't fully come into its own.
yeah, I'm
Yeah.
wondering if, yeah, this is good theory. I'm gonna contemplate this
Mm-hmm.
in the future. We should specifically choose the next second wall series based on something that was released with a more, say, weekly release
Yeah.
schedule in mind.
Yeah.
Then we
I
can,
expect to have different episodes. I expect to have different thoughts about that, but yeah, I'm interested to see how that turns out.
yeah. Either way,
Yeah.
uh, Squid Game, good. Doesn't have an ending. 240 should
It's
have
okay.
won and been my bay.
It's okay. I again watch it for the amazing acting and like the amazing cinematography. Story, yeah,
Yeah,
but
it's a big yeah. First had
there's a
it.
lot of good there.
There's a handsome cop at least.
So dreamy. Thanks for huddling around the second wall with us here tonight. Join us next time as we continue our discussion on Squid Game. Please join the conversation in the comments, in social media, or on our Discord, as we would love to continue the conversation there. Again, a full list can be found at beardyandthebeast.com. Thank you, and have a great night.